I went into the jungle because I heard a woman crying for help, and when she stepped into the moonlight, my stomach dropped before I even understood why. I wasn't supposed to be that deep in the forest alone. It was just a weekend trip with the guys. A rented cabin near the jungle edge. Cheap beer, bad signal, the usual stuff. That night, I couldn't sleep. It was too hot, too quiet, the kind of silence that feels thick instead of peaceful. I stepped out for some air. That's when I heard it. A woman crying. Not screaming, just a broken sound coming from between the trees. I figured someone from another campsite got lost. I called out, but the crying stopped, then turned into my name. A soft, weak whisper drifting out of the dark. Sounded so human, so real. I went after it. The deeper I walked, the clearer the sound became, pulling me away from the safety of the cabin lights. My heart was thumping against my ribs, a dull, heavy rhythm syncing with the snapping of twigs somewhere ahead. Every time I stopped to listen, the jungle went dead silent, that heavy, humid air pressing against my skin like a wet blanket. I'd catch a glimpse of something white through the thick foliage, a flash of fabric, a movement that didn't belong to the trees. I told myself it was just a lost hiker, but my gut was screaming. I saw her again, closer this time. She was standing between two massive trunks, partially turned away. Long, matted dark hair obscured her face, and her white dress was stained with dirt and moss. She looked fragile, almost broken. I called out again, my voice shaking more than I wanted to admit, asking if she was hurt. She didn't answer. She didn't even turn around. Instead, she started to move away from me, deeper into the shadows. It wasn't a walk. At first, I thought she was badly injured, dragging a mangled limb through the leaves. But as I watched her move into a patch of pale moonlight, my breath hitched. It was a rhythmic, controlled motion. A hop, but it was too smooth, too balanced to be human. When she shifted, the hem of her dress lifted just enough. There was no second leg, just one, thick and powerful, planted firmly in the center. She vanished into the dark before I could. I don't remember the walk back. My mind is a blur of jagged branches and gasping for air. When I finally reached the clearing, the cabin looked different, smaller, more vulnerable. My friends were still inside, the rhythmic sound of their breathing or snoring mocking the chaos in my chest. I didn't say a word to them. I just sat on the edge of my bunk, staring at my mud-caked boots until the sun started to bleed through the canopy. I told myself it was dehydration. I didn't really believe it. And the shadows in the jungle are notorious for creating shapes out of nothing. A fallen branch, a trick of the moonlight on white bark. It sounds like a fever dream when you say it out loud in the daylight. I spent the drive home convincing myself I'd had a panic attack brought on by the isolation. But my body wasn't buying the lie. My skin felt tight, itchy, as if I were covered in microscopic insects that wouldn't wash off. Since that night, time feels slippery. I'll look at the clock and it's 8 p.m. Then I blink and it's nearly midnight, but I haven't done anything. My apartment, which used to be my sanctuary, now feels like a cage. Every creak of the floorboards makes me jump. I find myself checking the locks 4 times a night, not because I'm afraid of a break-in, but because the air in the hallway feels too heavy, like it's being displaced by something standing just out of sight. I've started noticing small things. A faint, earthy smell in the carpet that wasn't there before. A smear of damp mud on the windowsill of my 4th-floor bedroom. I'm miles away from that forest, surrounded by concrete and streetlights, but the silence at night has that same thick, suffocating quality. I can't shake the feeling that I didn't actually leave. I think it followed me home. I spent the next 3 nights glued to my screen, scrolling through obscure forums and local folklore archives. I thought I was losing my mind, but then I found the threads. Other men, mostly hunters or solo hikers, describing the exact same thing. It was chilling to see my own nightmare reflected in their words. They all mentioned the same crying sound, that fragile, broken sob that makes you forget your own safety. They all saw the woman in the white dress, the long matted hair, and that impossible rhythmic hopping. One name kept appearing in the comments, whispered like a curse. La Patasola. The details were eerily consistent. The single, powerful leg and the way she lures victims deeper into the darkness using their own empathy against them. But as I read further, the similarities became terrifying for a different reason. Every account started the same way I did, the curiosity, the initial encounter, the feeling of being followed home. But none of the stories had a happy ending. The posters would stop updating after a few days or weeks. Their last entries were always filled with the same paralyzing dread, realizing that once she chooses you, she doesn't just want to be seen. She wants to be followed until there's nowhere left to run. I understand now that it wasn't a random encounter. She didn't just happen to be there when I was. She was waiting for someone like me. I don't know why I followed it. I always do stupid things when someone sounds like they need help. I'm the guy who stops for every stranded car and checks on every muffled sob. It's a trait I used to be proud of, my empathy, my need to be the protector. But in that jungle, she turned my own humanity into a hook. She knew exactly which frequency would pull me away from the fire. She didn't need to chase me because she knew I would come to her. It wasn't random. She chose me. Now, my life has narrowed down to a series of rituals designed to manage the dread. I don't look out of windows after sunset. I keep the television on at a low hum to drown out the silence, because the silence is where she lives. I've become an expert at identifying sounds, the settling of the building, the wind against the glass, the distant sirens. Anything that isn't a rhythmic, heavy thud is a victory. I've stopped going to the park. I've stopped visiting friends. My world has shrunk to the size of my apartment, and even that feels too large. The paranoia has settled into something quieter, something more permanent. It's not a frantic, screaming fear anymore. It's just a layer of my skin. I wake up, I check the locks, I check the corners, and I wait for the sun to go down so the cycle can begin again. I've accepted that she's there, just on the other side of the door. It's become my new normal. The terror is just a roommate now, a silent, hopping presence that I've learned to live beside, knowing that eventually, I'll stop resisting the urge to open the door and follow that sound one last time. It happened at 3:14 a.m. The crying didn't sound like a stranger anymore. It sounded like my mother. Not the way she sounds now, but the way she sounded when I was 6 years old. It was a soft, melodic hum that vibrated through the glass of my fourth-floor window. I knew it was a trick. I had spent weeks reciting the warnings and memorizing the patterns of her deception. Yet my hand moved before my brain could scream. I pulled back the heavy curtain just an inch. There was no ledge out there, no fire escape, just a sheer drop to the concrete. And yet she was there, pressed against the glass. She wasn't hanging. She was simply balanced on that single massive limb, defying every law of physics. Our eyes met, and in that second, the fear evaporated. I didn't feel terror. I felt a profound, hollow sense of belonging. The mistake wasn't looking. The mistake was thinking I still had a choice to stay inside. My internal resistance finally buckled and snapped. I reached for the lock, my movements slow and deliberate. I wasn't running anymore. Time doesn't work the same way anymore. Day and night bled into a single gray smudge, and the clocks in my apartment all stopped at once. I don't jump when I hear the heavy thud in the hallway anymore. It has become a comfortable sound, like a heartbeat I'd forgotten I possessed. I find myself standing by the door for hours, hand resting on the cold metal handle, not out of terror, but out of a strange, sickening loyalty. She's been so patient. She's been so quiet. I realize now that the jungle never really ended. It reshaped itself to fit inside these four walls. I used to think her single leg was a sign of something broken, something to pity or fear. But as I listened to that rhythmic strike against the floorboards outside, I finally understand it's not about what she's missing. It's about how she never stops. I'm not waiting for her to leave. I'm waiting to admit I've already joined.